What's happening, ladies and gentlemen of League Zero, and welcome to the countdown for week 7? Yeah, 7. I am joined by two divisional analysts this time around, and Hedwig from the Hangzhou Bark, the manager.
Hi.
For the novice analyst, we have Penguin507, or as you like to say in your 7-second summaries, what was it, like, Penguin507, you say it so fast.
Yeah. You gotta be speedy with it.
And then we have Setka for the advanced analyst.
Hello everyone, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at SetkaTV. I post all the times I'm casting matches. If you want to hear my lovely voice, I'd be more than happy to see you there.
And we will have all that stuff in the description as well. So, getting it straight into the matches for this past weekend. Some surprises, some not so surprising, but we'll start off with the advanced division. I'll just go through them briefly and then we'll round back over to them in more detail. But we had Crest 4-0ing Newt Newt, we had Chengdu Chads 4-0ing Easy Clap, which actually that one was a forfeit, so asterisk there, and then Z9 3-1ing the Hangzhou Bark. And let's go into the Crest versus Newt Newt match. So, Setka, what were some of the takeaways from this match for you?
So, it's Crest. You know, they are probably one of the best teams in League Zero. That 4-0, well, not surprising. Newt Newt, however, they did like to run a lot of DPS comps, and they had these moments of brilliance that looked super strong. And, of course, they did end up not taking a single map. The 4-0 did go to Crest, but I really like that Newt Newt is experimenting, especially with how this meta has been shifting all over. And I mean, Crest at sometimes just looked immortal. Like the Titans look immortal on stage, but Crest looked like a level above everyone else. Like their ult management, the way they play as a team, absolutely incredible. So that 0-4, not surprising, but Newt Newt has a lot going for them with the DPS comps they tried out.
I just want to point out, didn't Newt Newt drop like 3 of their players or something?
Yes, they dropped Neglect, Baz, and Bun. Baz was picked up by Chengdu, Bun was picked up by Z9, and Neglect is just retiring for now. He's burnt out. So that is going to be changing going into this week. Also, D'Artagnan is the new manager, and Meta is the new captain. So they will. I'm personally very interested to see what they're going to be doing with that. But yeah.
Yeah, especially because I remember Bun is a very good DPS. He's always been a very good DPS, so it's interesting that they let him go if they've been running more DPS heavy comps.
Yeah, I think we might be seeing an entirely new team. As to whether that's good or bad, we'll have to wait and see. But, and then briefly, I'm sure Crest will be very happy that you covered them a little bit, Setka. Usually, we just mistakenly compare everyone to them without actually talking about them. And I know some of their players have made that very vocal to the staff at the very least, so I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that they got some praise. And let's see, not really much to talk about. The Easy Clap Chengdu Chads match. Clap.
Actually,
oh, okay.
I do want to say one thing. I looked up. I like a good story. So story time with Setka here, right? Contenders North America Season 1 2018. A team called Second Win. Half their roster gets poached by what would become the Montreal Rebellion, Toronto's academy team. So within 2 days, they have to get 3 people to field 6 men to continue with Contenders because you can't forfeit. So they get 3 ringers, and they put Frill, who is a tier 3 hit scan player, to play Reinhardt in the GOATS meta, and they actually end up winning that match and make contenders playoffs. So just because you don't have your starting 6 doesn't mean you can't play. I mean, Overwatch is a game full of upsets, full of competitive spirit, and I kind of let the bad taste in my mouth that Easy Clap just kind of refused to find ringers. You're not putting optimal 6 out there. Maybe you don't. Maybe you can take a map off, get that map differential up. So just want to say, like, it is possible to win without your starting 6. So, it's been shown throughout higher levels of play. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, definitely, and I will say that staff tried very hard to encourage Easy Clap to find ringers, but they were just kind of disheartened at that point. They had just dropped Spectre, and they couldn't pick up the 2 players they wanted until Sunday, so...
They dropped another player, didn't they?
I don't know. I can't
feel like they dropped... Anyway. Yeah, Easy Clap is just... They're interesting right now, especially because of the problem with the 2 players that they tried to pick up, and then they couldn't because they actually weren't free agents at the time.
Yeah.
Now they've picked them up, which is okay, I guess they have their new. I think they're both DPS players.
Yeah, so that was their entire DPS lineup that they wanted. So
Yeah. So that was unfortunate.
yeah, and it was unfortunate that we didn't get to see. I personally wanted to see more of Chengdu Chad's Hack Fist because they pulled it out against Newt Newt to great effect. But
I
I was just excited to see them play again. I really want to see the Chads. I want to see more of them. They looked really good last week. I know I'm
I
not,
wanted to see if they
I'm not
could-
advanced novice.
Yeah, I wanted to see if the Chads could keep up that momentum, because they looked dominant in that Newt game. I wanted to see if they could keep up that momentum, but we didn't get to see them this week, so we'll have to see next weekend. It's against Crest, so...
yeah, it's going to be a tough opponent, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And then the last match of the week was the closest for Advanced Division was Z9 versus Hangzhou. And before we get into it, Hedwig, what are your takeaways from this match? Because you were playing, obviously.
Well, first of all, we made a lot of mistakes, myself included. There was a time actually en route that I think was clipped that I literally just Hollywood, that I literally just fell off the high ground into the enemy team at the end of the fight.
Oh no.
So that was not fun. But even though we made a lot of mistakes, we were still able to contest C9 on most maps. I think this is the first time ever we won the first control map in the series.
Yeah, and I will say that the fourth map, Hollywood, was it? Or was it
It was Junkertown.
Junkertown, right? That was ridiculously close. There were multiple times, I believe I casted that match, or at least hosted it, that there were multiple times in Junkertown I thought you guys were bringing it to a map 5.
Yeah, same with Hollywood, actually, because both Hollywood and Junkertown actually were unfortunate C9s on our part.
Oh yeah.
Hollywood, we didn't get to touch point in time, so the enemy team capped it, and Junkertown, we didn't get to map point all the way to point 3 because I think Ball actually looped us up.
Yeah.
But overall, it was a fun match, and I think we proved that we are able to contest the best teams even when we're not exactly looking our best.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, from my perspective, looking at that match, it was very winnable by you guys. I mean, that DC on Anubis absolutely killed your momentum. That was a very winnable map. You mentioned that C9 on Hollywood. Like, there were some so close moments. And overall, just, like, watching Hangzhou bark, like, I feel like that C9 really kind of affected the way you guys played for the, not that C9, but the DC on Anubis. Because, like, you just guys looked a little bit flustered after that. That was a very, very close game, and I don't know. Melon absolutely owned that entire game. He was just on fire, so...
Melon was amazing. And the other thing is, yeah, the DC was annoying, and also the fact that we didn't actually realize that rule was in place that you can't sub a player in mid-match.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that was kind of a full-string thing of like, oh, so we can't put Jepic in for the rest of this map? But...
yeah, that's new, because we had some issues with that Season 0.
Yeah, so... we, what's it called? But we still managed to push through and almost took the last 2 maps, so that was...
oh yeah,
wasn't
definitely. It's not anything to be ashamed of.
Yeah, the scoreline does not reflect how close that was. It was close for Advanced Division, but that felt like a map 5 game.
Yeah, definitely did. But moving on to the Novice Division, we had a few more games that were not 4-0s, although the first match was One Trick Wonders versus Platchat, an unfortunate 4-0 for mine and Hedwig's former team. Botburgers beat out Double Clap in 3-1 fashion, and then Rio actually beat out Papega Parrots 3-1, although it is worth noting that Papega had to forfeit the first map due to some issues with a drop. But we'll get to that in a minute. But
So yeah, there's a couple things to talk about in these matches. Starting with the One Trick Wonders versus Platchat one, it's sort of expected here that One Trick Wonders would be taking the series because Platchat, as of last week, they were a lot of a mess. They're looking a little bit better now. So hopefully we'll see something more out of them so they won't just be a joke. But One Trick Wonders, coming off of their last match, has been looking a lot better. Because there was a little bit there, where they lost some of their best players. They lost Arrow on the main tank, and they lost some other people on their team that made it one of the better teams. But they weren't looking too good. But after these last 2 weeks, they're looking up there in some of the better teams in the league.
yeah, definitely.
Moving on to Botburgers versus Double Clap. Oh, well, anything else to say about this?
No, I mean, Platchat got stomped. What else is new?
Yeah. Unlucky. Get them next time.
Hey, I think they're picking up new players. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was one of their bugs, and that
Oasis
was
is trying to take control of the team. Oasis and Charm. They look like they're going to give it the proper chance it needs.
That's good.
So, Bopburgers versus Double Clap. This was a very interesting match because I don't know if you guys noticed, but Bopburgers had like a lot of subs. So I was not expecting them to take this over Double Clap. So this does say two things. It shows how much if you just pocket Arrow can just win the game. It also shows that Double Clap is also a little bit of a mess right now. There's a lot of stuff going on and they just had a trade go through, which is good or bad, I don't know, we'll see. But there's a lot of issues going on there. So Double Clap, they're not looking great, and Bopburgers is just throwing everything on the Arrow's back and seeing how it goes.
I actually casted that game, and I don't have an official count, but I'm sure it's in like the multiple dozens. The amount of times I just screamed Arrow's name. That man just played the match of his life right there. It's a really great game out of him.
It really just shows how good their bench is at just throwing all of their resources into Arrow, because they were peeling for him really well. It's not like, I'm not saying that Arrow, okay, he did carry the match like in statistics, but if we're talking about playing, I mean, he did a great job playing, but you also got to shout out the rest of the team because they did an amazing job keeping him alive. He's such a Chad Reinhardt. He goes for these big plays and they somehow keep him up. It's remarkable.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of Double Clap, the takeaways I had were that one, King Genius is good at literally any composition you put him on, but that the rest of Double Clap seems to have a lot of trouble dealing with heavy DPS comps, and the few times that Bopburgers and One Trick Wonders last week pulled that out, Double Clap just didn't have an answer. They seemed to like to run the goats. And then Arrow, of course, being pocketed like Bumper, it's going to be very hard to beat that style of goats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like just in general, I've noticed any team that's very heavily focused on goats, whether it be professionally or even in this league, DPS comps can kind of stomp them, and that's why if you see a lot of teams, they're now, if the enemy team is running goats, DPS, they'll swap to some form of like Sombra comp, because that has a tendency to counteract the goats, especially the ball, but just kind of hard running goats into it doesn't really work.
Yeah. And then
So,
the final match. Go ahead.
Yeah, the final match. We were both doing the intro into it. So, talking about teams that don't do well against not goats, there's Papega Parrots for you. They have a lot of stuff going on with them now, too, with the drop of Tedison, who is an important part of their coaching staff. But as of last week, this is just a matchup issue here, because Rio is debatably one of the best teams at running DPS. Seeing Chicken playing DPS, seeing Epps on that Pharah, Stewie had a great Sombra. Their team is just really solid on those DPS characters, and it really showed last week, especially playing against a team that really wants to play goats. They want to play goats no matter what, and Papega Parrots, they're very good at goats, but they're not very flexible. I think they do have an issue with the Double Clap. They share an issue there. I think Papega Parrots is a little bit better at that, as you would expect from the top seed in the league, but they just couldn't show up to that match, especially because Chicken was putting so much pressure on, and it just caused them a lot of issues and caused them to lose another match.
Yeah.
Interesting thing, apparently Papega Parrots just picked up a new main tank.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? I can't scroll up because I'm recording the thing, but I will say that I am in Papega Parrots' server, and they were definitely tilted by the fact that their management cost them the first match, or first map of that match. Like, a lot of the players didn't agree with how it was handled, and what happened is they dropped a player without it actually being mutual, and then there was no reason for it to be non-mutual, so it was just this whole big mess that was the management's fault. Not to say that they're bad management, actually I'd say they're some of the best management in the league, at least in the novice division, but unfortunate for them, that one, their players just weren't feeling it. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that game was still very winnable though. Like, Rio just dropped their main support in Milky, and Tyranitar, I mean, I think he even got player of the match. He's still a good player, but I mean, you drop one map, you can still take that back. So I don't know if putting that all in that first match just kind of changed the momentum. I feel like Papega Parrots definitely could have won that.
Oh, absolutely. That's no excuse. Hell, I was expecting him to 3-1 Rio, to be entirely honest. I was expecting it to be a stomp still. So definitely should expect more out of the top seed. And I guess this upcoming week will be the deciding factor as to whether they can bring it back and retain their spot.
It
But-
might be a downward trend though, 'cause there's a lot of bad stuff happening to Pepega. And
Yeah.
I think the loss of Tedison's gonna hurt them a lot more than a lot of people realize.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was integral to their coaching staff.
He was their head coach, so that's gonna be a big yikes. But hopefully they can rebound. Personally, I like seeing them come up from no one expecting them to do well to going almost undefeated. So hopefully they can retain at least the upper half of the standings. But moving into the players of the match, we'll start off with the advanced division. So for Z9, we had the player of the match was Gagbag, and the honorable mentions were Nero and Swaggy Turtle. And then Crest was Chance, with honorable mentions going out to Koodle and Moby. And Setka, do you want to say a little bit about Z9's people?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to say about Gagbag. You know, a lot of internal drama going on outside of play, inside the game. He's a very fine diva player. I'm just gonna leave it at that because there's a lot going on right now. And then as far for Crest, I mean, you could almost put all the Crest lineup for player of the match. I mean, Phoenix is probably the best diva in Advanced Division. You know, maybe a hot take there, but all of Crest
I
are just
agree
so
with that.
good. And it's really not their players that make them so good, it's just their cohesion. So, like, I just, all 6 of their starting lineup could honestly go in there any given day.
Yeah, actually, I think, last week we had Koodle on, and he was saying that generally Falcon will just, like, carry them, and then they'll vote for someone else, and he'll just get tilted.
Yeah, no, Falcon, when we played him, Falcon was amazing. He ate a lot of my grabs. I'm actually kind of surprised that Yusuf was not Yusuf was not a player of the match for Z9. He had a lot of very like nasty shatters and just flanks and blocks overall in our game.
He tried to defran a shatter too, which I can respect.
That was
So did
funny.
Melon. Melon failed to defran grab.
Yep, that was funny too. 2 very, very close attempts. But yeah, in terms of Gagbag, I think I say this every single time he's an honorable mention or a player of the match, but the dude is just a monster. Like, he's arguably one of the best off-tanks in the entire league.
Oh, definitely.
But moving over to the novice division, we have player of the match for One Trick Wonders was Shifting, with an honorable mention going out to Domination. Bot Burgers, no surprise here, it was Arrow, with an honorable mention going out to Octo. Rio Redemption actually chose Tyranitar, their now, I guess, starting main support for player of the match, and then Stewie 1K and Epps getting honorable mentions, no surprise there. Those 2 are definitely hard carries and have been the entire season. So let's start off with One Trick Wonders. Penguin, what's your take on Shifting and Dom?
I don't really have much to say here. They both played They played very well, actually. They were definitely standout performances here. Shifting's Hanzo looked really good, as One Trick is really. They were one of the pioneers there on trying to change over to DPS comps, and we're seeing that a lot more now. But before, it was just a lot of goats, and Shifting's Hanzo looked really good in this match. And Domination, he played a lot of stuff, but he looked really good on all of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's Shifting and Dad who have like almost identical hero pools in terms of projectile DPS, and they're both just terrifying when it cocomes to like Pharah, Doomfists, Hanzo, basically just anything.
That's a combination.
Yeah, it really is.
Combo.
And then you have Domination, which the team themselves said his flexibility really allowed them to pop off that match. And then Bot Burgers, I'm sure Setka could write an entire 5-page essay on why Arrow is just insane.
Chad.
I'm pretty sure he was the number 1 draft pick in all of Novice, and he has continually proven that.
Probably.
Can I just say a quote that Arrow told me in a post-game interview?
Yeah, sure.
He said, in scrims, if we don't know what we're doing, the comms just go, stack on Arrow, stack on Arrow. Like, their strategy is to just, like, Arrow to try and feed and to just deny it. Like, he plays these games like I play in my solo queue in Diamond. Like, he just constantly charging, wilding in. Definitely deserves it, but, man,
Sounds like agreed.
I can respect it.
I will say, I think Bot Burgers would be a lot more fragile if they matched up Arrow with a not as good healing lineup. But considering they have Arrow being a Chad, and then they have some of the greatest healers and even backup healers in the league, it's just a terrifying matchup.
Oh yeah, definitely. Octo being the Ana player for the majority of that match against Double Clap. Like, he was pumping out nano boosts like once every minute, maybe minute and a half.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
like-
we talk about Ranter every week as a great Ana, but Octo, I mean, he may not get to play a lot, but when he does, he also looks really good.
Yeah, definitely. And then the Rio Redemption player of the match was Tyranitar. I will say briefly that he was a content creator for Plat Chat Season 0, so it's good to see him in the limelight.
Hey.
Yeah, I think Tyranitar is definitely an interesting pick. A lot of people on Rio are talking about him that he's one of the most slept-on players on Rio, and I can certainly agree. He's a great support player. I mean, I was dueling with him earlier today. He's a really good support player, and he's gotten a lot better this season. He started out as one of those players that wasn't that great, but he's definitely looking a lot better, and I think this is a well-deserved representation of his skill. And then, I know you already mentioned the honorable mentions. They're great players. There's no surprise there. Epps is solid, and Stewie's also great. They're just really good players.
I don't think Rio has gotten player of the match or honorable mentions for every single week that they've won without mentioning Stewie or Epps, so that
Yeah, you just
says
can't.
enough. Says enough with itself. So unless someone else has anything else to say about any of the players in the match, etc., then we can move on to the weekly segment, guest segment. I guess in this case it actually is a guest segment in a way. I had chosen the topic long before Hedwig had reached out to me to be like, hey, can I be on the countdown? And normally I don't oblige people asking to be on, but considering the topic, which is, I wrote down here, Hangzhou's a good team. Which, if you saw the preseason power rankings, they were unanimously at 6th. And now they are looking like a third place team. I mean, you guys just took Crest to map 5, you almost took Z9 to a map 5, arguably could have won either of those matches. So I guess the biggest question to ask for you, Hedwig, as the manager for the majority of the season, is what's like the big change since the mid-season that's sort of helped you guys come together as good as you have?
I'm pretty sure every single person who knows anything about Hangzhou or the Advanced Division has probably already noticed this, but it would definitely have to be Andrew. Andrew, first of all, he's a 4.6k peak player or something. He almost or was in Contenders Trials. He's insane. But not just the fact that he's able to play, but also his ability to micromanage our team, specifically Agreed, is incredible.
Yeah, I think anyone who knows Agreed knows that micromanaging him is quite the task in and of itself, so the fact that Andrew can do that as well as build up a trance every 30 seconds is kind of nuts.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of funny because our main supports always have such a hard time of finding a time to beat, because Andrew almost always has a trans, so they never know if he's going to pop it, because he also has a tendency to very aggressively pop trans. So they'll be like, oh, I'm going to beat, and then just a trans comes out, and you double stack support ults, and then Andrew builds another trans in 30 seconds, so it's fine.
He builds trance like Somber builds EMP.
Pretty much.
That actually makes a lot of sense now that you say it, because I do remember there were at least like 2 times that I saw, and I believe I was only in for the last 2 maps, for casting your game against C9, where like you guys double stack support ults, and I'm like, oh no, that's terrible, and then before the next fight even starts, he has trance. Like, oh, never mind.
Never mind, we're good. Yeah. So Andrew's ability, because anyone who's watched the advanced games have probably noticed that Agreed feeds a lot less because Andrew does micromanage our team. But it's not just Andrew. We've also finally pretty much acquired all the pieces to make a top tier team. Like at the beginning of the season, especially with the draft, and I think 3 of our players leaving because of inactivity and stuff.
2, if I recall. It was Dev and Quacken?
Dev, Quacken, and what's his name? The projectile.
I don't know.
I don't remember. Anyway, there's a
either.
projectile that we kicked as well for being toxic. So having 3 of our players that were supposed to be starters gone didn't help. But now after the mid-season, picking up Andrew, Acid, Kurt, Jepic.
I will say that, like, with YOLO God, I think YOLO God was a disconnect, right?
Yes.
And Jepic coming in on Hollywood, like, he really came in it for his for his first match. Like, he popped off.
We have actually scrimmed with Jepic like once or twice, and the way he played was incredible. I'm very proud of him. He did amazing. And just overall, our teamwork has gotten a lot better because we're starting to trust each other more. We're getting our bubbles off better. We're cycling ults. We're
Minus
still
Andrew.
getting some... Minus Andrew, but Andrew doesn't need to cycle ults. It's fine. But we still, myself mainly, whiff some bit ultimates. Agreed and I will randomly like throw a grab into Diva Matrix or Shatter into Shield, but overall we've improved majorly.
Yeah, I can definitely say that watching you guys throughout the league, but one thing I've just noticed in particular is that, like, you guys, like, when it comes to snowballing goats fights, I would say you guys are on the, like, sort of the weaker half in the league. Like, your micro play is great. The way you guys play around each other is really strong, but you don't press your advantages as much as I would like to see, and it can be a little bit frustrating as a caster and as someone who has a lot of tier 3 experience to kind of see that. So there's definitely a lot of potential in Hangzhou. I mean, they look the best they've had this entire season, so I'm really excited to see how you guys go, because if you guys can press your advantage a bit better, if you guys can learn how to snowball and keep a better ult eco, you guys can be a deadly team.
Yeah, I will definitely say we have had I'm just remembering a specific point on Hollywood, like first point, where we had taken the Rhine down to 100 health, and then we didn't push him, and he ended up getting into full, and we lost that fight because we didn't push our advantage. So we're still kind of in that stage, especially because I think we've only had Andrew for like 1 or 2 weeks. That we're still trying to like figure out exactly how aggressive we can play. Like, Andrew fully reined in Agreed's aggression, and now we're trying to like get it at a point where he can be very aggressive when he needs to be, and then pull back when he needs to be, when he needs to. So we're still kind of figuring that out, and once we do, I think we could very easily be the best team in the league. And I think we proved that these past 2 weeks.
Now that's a hot take right there. All right.
I definitely think you're not stretching too much when you say you could be the best team in the league if you just fix up a few things. I mean, with how close the last 2 weeks have been, I fully expect you guys to finish out the season going 5-5, just like clean sweeping the rest of the opponents. Although
Chaz might be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah,
but...
that was what I was gonna say. Chaz might be a challenge, but actually, let's get into that right now with the predictions. Transition time. So next, I guess this upcoming week's matches, week 8 is Z9 versus Newt, Crest versus Chengdu Chads, Easy Clap versus Hangzhou Bark, and then for Novice we have Double Clap versus Rio, Platchat versus Botburgers, and Papega versus One Trick. So all of us unanimously think that Z9 is just going to roll over Newt. I don't think that's too outlandish to say, especially since Newt's going through a very large shift at the moment.
And
we have no idea what's going to come out of them. Anyone have any?
I think Z9 is honestly, like, Z9's probably the best team in the league.
That's actually a tough call.
Yeah, I don't know.
See, okay, I have my Crest above them, but I would say Newt. I mean, they're an alright team, but when looking at the mid-season point when I did my report cards, everyone, I know there's no star player. Like, every team has that one player. It's like, yes, that's their carry. That's who they build around. And that's just lacking in Newt. Like, you can't name one person from Newt who's like, this is who's clutching their games. This is who they're building around. And so I feel like that's really what's killing them right now.
Yeah, no more
It's
Bone
sort of
Reaper.
crazy to see how much they've dropped off. I don't know, mid-season, it looked like they looked like a safe bet for 3rd place, but...
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like,
Yeah.
all of their players, until they dropped Baz, Neglect, and Bun, were all very good. But you're right, I wouldn't say any of them were absolute stars that just kind of hard carried their team, like Wannabe can for Chads or Andrew can for us.
Yeah, definitely. I think Baz in particular being such an insane shot caller, anyone who's on or knows about Season 0 Platchat would know that. But he definitely had a larger impact, or at least noticeable impact, when he was a flex support as opposed to playing the Mercy, playing the Lucio. You know.
Yeah.
And then a second match, most of us think that Crest is going to take this in somewhat unsurprising fashion, but Hedwig actually has some faith in the Chads here, so let's hear your take on that.
honestly kind of comes down to one specific player, and it's Wannabe. Wannabe is, in my opinion, and from what I've heard from some of the other players, their opinion too, he's the best hit scan in the league. Like, undeniably, his Zarya is the best, his Widow is the best, his Tracer is decent, his McCree is very, very good. Wannabe is just overall the best hit scan in the league, and in scrims, he dominates.
What is happening?
What is happening, Penguin?
Wait,
Penguins serenading us.
no. I thought I had push to talk on this whole time.
Oh my god.
Beautiful.
But yeah, and on Crest, I'm just trying to think, Koodle is a good hit scan, but Wannabe's star potential, and also just kind of the rest of Chad's, I'm completely blanking on the roster right now, actually. Like,
Well, they just picked up Baz, so...
yeah, so Baz is a great main support, and let me just check.
I'm actually really hyped to see Baz versus Saito. I really hope they can both make it to the match.
Oh yeah,
Because-
that'll be an interesting match for sure.
The Reddit Lucios.
Adam is very, very good.
Adam supposedly is swapping over to Flex support, so...
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Zira, when he's not on Zarya, he looks very good.
Now that they have Wannabe, that's fixed, hopefully.
Yeah, I've heard Marky Candy has one of the best Sombras in the league, actually.
Okay, Marky was on my open team a while ago, and I was a coach for it. Honestly, like, this man is really weird. Because I don't know, his personality kind of transcends humanity, but he can just pick up a character and play it. Like, right after our open team disbanded, he was like our Zarya and Diva player, and he just kept spamming us that, like, the opening of the season, he became the #1 Genji statistically on Overbuff. He won like 28 straight games on Genji out of nowhere. I mean, he's kind of like Fleta, to where you just give him a week, he'll have a character mastered. So definitely a lot out of him.
When does his ban actually end? Because I know he was banned for...
I think
like,
this week.
6, 7, 8. No, so he's gonna be able to start week 9. So not this week.
Ooh, well, whenever they do get him, that'll be interesting to see how that kind of shifts the dynamic of their team. I wonder
Wait,
if
is
they're
that the game versus you? It might be.
I think it is.
It
Yeah.
is.
I think.
Oh,
So
boy.
that'll... I wonder if they're actually scrimming with him, because he can't play for...
From what I have heard, they scrim with him on occasion, like a map here or there. At least when he first got suspended, that's what they were doing. I'm not sure if they've continued that or not.
Alright, so that'll certainly be an interesting power dynamic, but overall, their team, especially just Wannabe is kind of my big deciding factor. I think, and also their performance against News, I think they do have a legitimate shot against taking down Crest.
I guess we'll have to see. Moving on to the final match of the Advanced Division, at least. Most of us are expecting Hangzhou to take down Easy Clap, but Setka actually thinks that Easy Clap is going to flip things around and win for the first time since week 2. So let's hear your take on that.
Alright, so the reason why I have Easy Clap winning is because it really depends if they can collect themselves together. And after recent events, I don't know. It really depends, because that Easy Clap, if they're feeling it, if they're good, they are a really strong team. And also, they're one of the more aggressive teams in the league. I think Zim and Z9 are in a really close race. And so, you know, Hangzhou Bark, they have a really kind of a passive style in their play. And so if Easy Clap, if they're playing well, I think that aggressive style naturally counters the passive way to do it. So I just, based on their style and what Easy Clap we get, you know, if we get that if Easy Clap collect themselves and get back to where they were, or if we see an Easy Clap that's been showing up, I think there is a pretty good potential though for Easy Clap to take that just off of their aggressive play.
I will say
I
there
think-
is something of a wild card factor for Hangzhou Bark in this case, which is Andrew. I've seen firsthand when I've spectated him how much he punishes aggressive main tanks. So I think Jason or Norse, whoever they decide to play, is just gonna get melted.
Yeah, the problem is, I will agree with you. Easy Clap is definitely aggressive. I will not necessarily agree with the comment on us being passive, because we have agreed, but we've definitely become more passive than we used to be. But the problem is, they have a tendency, from what I've seen, to be too over-aggressive, and our team kind of thrives on that because if any person gets caught out of position, especially the main tank or the Brigida, Andrew will either call them to instantly melt them, or Andrew will just 1v1 them and kill them. So
Yeah.
it'll definitely be interesting to see if they can rein that aggression in our match, because they can't play too aggressively, but they can't play too passively. So we'll see if they can find that balance.
And moving over to the novice division, we're actually split down the middle for a good number of these. So for Double Clap versus Rio Redemption, myself and Hedwig expect Double Clap to take it, and Penguin and Setka both think Rio. So let's hear from Penguin, because you're the novice analyst here. I want to hear what you think of Rio in this case.
Alright, so this is a combination of Rio looking really good recently and Double Clap looking really not good recently. Rio, I feel like they've been on the upswing here. They've really been embracing that DPS that they thrive on, so I feel like that's going to really help them out in these upcoming matches and just embracing that they want to play DPS, so they're going to go play DPS. And Double Clap has been a team that has been stuck on goats, and I feel like this is going to look a lot like the Rio Redemption versus Pepega last week, except for I feel like it's going to be even more of a role for Rio here, because Double Clap is not super good at adapting to that non-goats scenario here. And I really feel like Rio is just going to thrive off of that.
Hold on, who did Rio pick up from the Plat Chat trade? I forget. I know they picked up Designs, but he went into free agency first. Let me scroll up. Z9 got Gunther. Here we go. They got... Oh, they got Kizco and Bob Ross. So actually, Double Clap does have some DPS potential now, with at the very least Bob Ross and Designs. Although I think they both hit scan, I'm not entirely sure about that. So I am interested to see how Double Clap will utilize their DPS lineup, especially with the absence of Oasis, because his Pharaoh is actually quite good, now being on Plat Chat. But I do think this will be a rather close match. Both of these teams appear to be like middle of the rankings-ish, possibly going up or down, hard to tell. Moving over to Bot Burgers versus Plat Chat. This one I'm actually very surprised to see is split down the middle. Myself and Penguin think Bot Burgers, and Hedwig and Setka think Plat Chat. So, Hedwig, why do you say Plat Chat, aside from any potential nostalgia?
None. I literally know nothing about the novice division, and I like Plat Chat, and that's it.
Nostalgic,
I honestly
got it.
Now, let's just take a quick look at their map differential here.
What is it, like negative 16?
It's like negative. It's a lot. It's not good.
I know it's double digits.
That being said, I can understand. Let's just assume that you do know what's happening within their inner workings. They are reforming here, but
well,
right
I mean,
now,
I do because I'm in
their
their server,
Oh yeah, we're still, most of Season 0 is still in their server.
and I have
They
access to
are
all of their
reformed, I
chats
guess.
actually,
Yeah.
so I can see what they're doing. I participate in some of their pugs, and it's funny because I go on Smurfs, and then that's great. But
I flipped a coin to decide what I was going to pick. So.
yeah, mine is
Okay.
just based off bias, and also I've seen that it does look like Oasis and I'm blanking on the other one.
Charm.
Yeah, Charm has started doing some internal workings a bit late, seeing as how they can only pick up players until Friday. So let's hope they can work together everyone they want. But I have faith in them.
Yeah, I am actually quite interested to see what those two can do in Plat Chat, but also what Designs can do for Double Cap if he does, or Double Clap, I guess, if he does step up, because Designs for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, he was the assistant manager for Plat Chat, until he eventually just like couldn't take it anymore. He just kind of burnt himself out doing a lot of stuff, like he was setting up most of the scrims and all that, so. And then Double Clap just happened to pick him up. That wasn't really part of the plan as far as I know.
UQO is AFK.
He has work a lot, actually, apparently.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay, and this one I'm actually most interested to discuss, which is Pepega Parrots. Wow, calling it back to week 5. Pepega Parrots versus One Trick Wonders. All three of myself, Hedwig, and Saika believe Pepega Parrots will continue their dominance, and Penguin actually thinks that One Trick is going to, and I can certainly see why, but I want to hear anything in particular that you have to say about that, Penguin.
Okay, so Yeah, time to make my argument here. Gonna state my claim. I think this is more an issue of. I think One Trick Wonders is probably right in the middle of the pack, sitting around that, I don't know, 4th seed-ish. Papega Parrots they're still up there, they're one of the better teams in the league, but I just feel like they've been falling apart recently, and I know we've already talked about this multiple times, but losing Tedison's not going to help them here. It's going to cause them a lot of issues. And One Trick has been strangely consistent very recently, so I feel like they can put up the performance here to beat Papega Parrots, plus I just wanted to be cool, and I wanted to be myself.
Actually, I will say that this match, just like week 3 it was, is actually number 1 versus number 2, except neither of these teams are undefeated anymore.
I think it will be very close either way. I personally would give One Trick Wonders the edge, but it could go either way.
I think it kind of depends on what maps are played in a way, because I would say One Trick is definitely outclassing Papega in terms of DPS. Not to say that Magical and Nick are bad, but One Trick's DPS lineup is just insane. And then Papega probably has the better goats, so we'll have to wait and see. And does anyone else have anything to say about any of the matches for this upcoming weekend?
Vote for Hangzhou.
There's no voting,
there will
but
be a 7-second summary next
root
week.
for us. I don't know.
yeah, and there will be all the links to everyone's social medias and stuff in the description. So check that out if you want to see, although I'm sure most of you already know Penguin at the very least. So hope you all enjoyed this week's countdown. Tried to keep it on the shorter side. I believe we succeeded in that, reaching about 40 minutes now. So yeah, on the shorter side, not like an hour and 20 minutes. So if you enjoyed it, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like it, maybe even subscribe. Closing statements, Hedwig?
Thanks for having me on here. It was fun, and not nearly as unique as agreed.
Unique, that's a nice way to put it. Setka, do you have any closing statements?
Follow my Twitter. I don't post on it, but I enjoy the numbers. Also, unofficially, I'd like to claim myself as the best caster in League Zero, so I'll be willing to fight my title. If you want to find out, make sure to watch whatever game I'm casting next week, and you'll see why.
Okay, other casters step up. And Penguin, you got any closing statements?
It's been an honor to be on the countdown. I feel so official now. I finally have roles in the server. I'm not just that one guy who makes videos. So yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And that's all we've got for this week. So until next week, peace not.